Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Spotify.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
So good, so good, so good.
Get ready, cause Clear the Rack is on at your Nordstrom Rack store. Now through Monday, find incredible deals on Wear Now styles. On sale for even less at Nordstrom Rack. Take an extra 25% off red tag clearance throughout the store from brands like Free People, Steve Madden, Vince, and more. All sales final. The best stuff goes fast. So shop this sale at Nordstrom Rack today. Please see NordstromRack.com or ask a store associate for details.
Mega is an improvised satire from the staff of a fictional megachurch.
We are here, the Lord, we are here, and we're ready to podcast.
Hiya, I'm Hallie Labont, and this is Mega, coming to you from Twin Hills Community Church, where every single week we're giving our mega church a tiny family feel. We love to introduce you to members of our church staff and people from our community, and I always find it to be a treat and a treasure. And per usual, I'm joined by my co-host. He's the youth pastor for our high school ministry called Climax. Please welcome Gray Haas.
I don't like to brag, but Jesus is swag. Hallie, how are you?
Oh, so blessed. Well, just like Jesus asked us to remember his body and blood, our guest today has not forgotten. She leads the Christ on a Cracker ministry. It's my pleasure to introduce Abby Prince. How you doing today, Abby? Welcome to the program.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Yeah. Oh, man. Big fan of the pod. And just really excited to get into it.
Well, it is really, really lovely to have you, Abby. And we are excited because it sounds like you have been cooking up. And I'm sorry if that's sort of a joke. So tell us a little bit about Christ on a Cracker.
Well, the Lord's always been a big part of my life. But the other thing that I have, they say, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And I was looking for something in the entrepreneurial space. And I just realized that my two great loves, of course, Jesus Christ, and also snacking. And I thought, how can I marry these two? Awesome. And I realized that, we, in a sense, we snack every time we enter the church. We're snacking on God with our minds, but also with our literal tongues and our mouths. And we're feeding on him, and he's filling us up. And I thought, how can I make that a more craveable experience for the average churchgoer? So, Christ on a Cracker is all about bringing to your ministry, regardless of what faith you practice, making sure that we're bringing communion wafers, breads, pitas, English muffins, whatever you're going to use as the body. We want to bring it to your ministry, and we want to make sure that you have something that doesn't just satisfy the soul, but it satisfies the tongue as well, because nothing really fills me up like Christ.
Oh, isn't that the truth? And I mean, there is no holier snacking than communion. I mean, and the thing about communion, to be honest, Abby, is that...
Sure, please. I wouldn't want you to do anything else. Be honest.
Yeah. I always want more. Anytime we do communion, I'm like, you know what? This is delicious. And we just get such tiny portions, because it's, more for the symbolism or whatnot. But boy, does it speak to me as a snack.
Yep, absolutely. And that's actually the great thing about Christ on a Cracker. We're inviting all of our ministries to say, you know what, take Christ home with you. If you're sitting in front of the TV watching your Jeopardy or your Law and Order or whatnot, and you're looking for a little something to wet your whistle and also fill your soul, why not reach for a bag of communion wafers, and we've got them in all different flavors, and so really you can find the snack that really just whets your appetite.
I mean, I did. I the other day, and when I was with my teens in Climax, a bunch of them were in the back. You know, a lot of times we say you got to wait to have snacks before the end of whatever message I'm communicating. And I saw a bunch of kids giggling, snacking, and I thought, hey, I'm going to have to really crack down because, no food in the auditorium. But I was so excited that they actually had a bag of your communion wafers. I think it was the Cool Ranch flavor, and a bunch of
that's one of our best sellers. Yep.
Yes, and a bunch of little squeezy sort of juice packs that come along with it. And they said, Gray, we're basically communing right now. And I said, guys, you know what? I'll back off.
Yeah, because communion doesn't have to just be for the church. You can take communion home with you. Yeah, for sure. Or into your ministry, into your youth groups, what have you.
Well, I got to tell you, I think my favorite new flavor that you've brought out is the umami flavored wafers. I didn't know umami was a flavor, and it turns out I love it. And I think it's a cool idea to let people purchase these wafers to take home in all their different forms, because you know what? You're sitting down in front of ESPN or whatnot, and you start popping them back. And what does it do but remind you of church, of communion, of Christ, of his sacrifice?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's what we're hoping to do, is make that a part of your day to day, really. Yeah, and I know people are wondering too, the price point, because that is a pretty high price point.
Oh yeah, really?
It's $29.99 a box, but that's because each box of wafers or breads or crackers, what have you, they've all been blessed. We're
that's cool.
in fact, you can get them double blessed, triple blessed, depending on what suits your mood, what satisfies your craving, and for the spirit as well as for a snack. So
I love that. And I mean, you offer a subscription service, I saw, and I think that's great for the church. And then I, speaking personally, the hardest part of communion for me is never, ever about taking the communion, obviously being reminded of that sacrifice that Christ and Jesus specifically made. It's more about things like the high carbs, and I'm wondering, because I haven't eaten bread really. When it comes to taking communion, a lot of times I'll suck on the bread and then I'll, have a little spit cup just to spit it out. Just because I'm really anti-carb. Is there anything that you're doing for someone like me?
Yeah, actually, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we are coming out with a new gluten-free
great
edition of all of our snacks very soon. That's right around the corner. So be on the lookout for that on our website, and we'll have those delivered to your door for sure.
Oh, I love that. I mean, did you always have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit? I mean, where did the idea come from?
My father, in my hometown, when the local movie theater shut down, the revenue was not coming in. They actually overtook the movie theater, and that became one of our home church.
Oh, really?
And so I watched him turn that business into a thriving community, a thriving ministry, and I was in charge of all the marquee signs, coming up with little Christ puns about people welcoming him in, like now playing salvation.
That's good.
Yeah, so
I love that pun.
So I really, I think that really just instilled in me from a very young age, as a young girl, that you can mix the Lord with business, and that there can be a happy marriage, as there should be happy marriages between a man and a woman, and only those two.
That will, and I feel good knowing that a snack I'm snacking on has been blessed, and honestly, that it was made with a Christian's hands. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I like to buy my car from a Christian car salesman. I like a Chick-fil-A. I like any Christian business. Hobby Lobby. I'm going to frequent these places because I know it's going to benefit Christians who are following Christ. I mean, and there's nothing more important than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I actually I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to come on the pod because I did have an opportunity earlier in the year to appear on Shark Tank.
Really?
It was I was pretty excited about it. And then kind of at the last minute, I don't know, something got confused, our wires crossed, but I said, just double checking all those sharks in there. They've all, they're prepared to take the sacrament.
Oh, right.
And, has everyone been confirmed? Are they true believers, essentially?
Right.
And the answer was no. And then I said, well, in that case, I'm walking.
Oh, good for you.
Because it's just not worth it for me. Because that's really not, of course we like to make communion fun, but it's still communion,
Yes.
And it's still the body of Christ. So, I didn't want anybody who wasn't on board.
You don't need to use an oversized AI model for everything, just like you don't need to use an axe to slice a cake. Find out how smaller models can deliver the right results and help cut AI costs up to 90% at IBM.com. The AI built for business, IBM. Looking for an AI glow-up that passes the office vibe check? What? AI that only knows the internet doesn't make sense for business. Get AI trained on your data at IBM.com. The AI built for business, IBM.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
Thank you for taking it seriously because it's a serious sacrament. And, the Bible, I learned growing up in church that if you have sin in your heart that is unconfessed and that, you have not, laid at the feet of Jesus, if you have that sin in your heart, when you take communion, you will get violently ill, violently ill. And so as a kid, once it was being passed around and I had it in my hand, the little cup of grape juice, the little cube of bread, I would sit and just be like, oh, please forgive me for every sin I ever committed. I would really do a full wash, of trying to make sure that I was covered because, that can happen. So you might have really saved Mark Cuban from some explosive illness.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And that's not good for my product either. If Mr. Wonderful's, having an episode or something, vomiting all over the soundstage. That's not good for anybody. So I'm glad we avoided that.
Yeah. And I don't want to assume that any of those judges on Shark Tank are not Christians. I believe everyone, even who isn't currently saved, I call them pre-Christians because I know God's going to work on their hearts. But I would assume that most of those Shark Tank judges are not saved because I understand them to be very wealthy. And Jesus said wealthy, it's easier to get.
Wealthy is healthy.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. But you know what? Maybe Mark Cuban, maybe he's a believer. I hope he is.
Well, and they didn't specify which ones were not. I don't want to assume, but.
Yep.
Yeah, I just can't imagine Ray Dalio not being a Christian. But, I did want to ask you, did you go all the way out there and then, you're on set and then you just, out there in California or wherever they shoot it? And what do you do when you're not, that had to be such a disappointment. You were right there. And then,
so close.
I was so close. And I thought of my daddy too in that moment because he's since passed. And I just thought, what would Daddy do and what would Jesus do in this moment? And I prayed on it.
Yeah.
I prayed on it for about 10 seconds right before they were going to call me out. I was that close. I was on the other side of those big double doors.
Oh, so you were about to go on.
I really yanked the cord at the last minute.
Wow. And so you're about to walk on, you pull the plug, and then, I'm assuming Shark Tank is shot live, right? Like, did they just have Did they just have blank air
They
for a
must have
while?
had-
Yeah, you can't actually you can't hear it because they mute them, but it is a live studio audience.
Oh, really?
And so they
That's
were
what I
pretty.
thought.
There was some booze.
Oh.
There were some booze, yeah, because they did just go to dead air, and of course they were eager to get at the products because they didn't realize that this is there's a faith component to this. They just thought they thought Christ on a cracker. They just thought it was a funny pun, which of course it is, but it isn't.
Yes.
Right. It's very serious.
It's
Wow,
serious
I'm so
stuff.
sorry you missed that
yeah, there
opportunity.
was some booing and there was some hollering, people throwing things on the stage, and they quick cut to commercial. And at that point, they didn't ask me, they just escorted me off the lot, and they said, get out of here.
And then did you just have
they
what,
pay for
24?
your flight too. They pay for your flights out. So then that was a whole debacle. I had to get my cousin's a lawyer, and so he had to get involved, make sure, how are we going to do that bit of business? But I just said, I'm nothing if I can't stand by my principles and I can't stand by my product. So, so we're still working that out in courts right now. I can't really speak on it too much, but it was a bit of a debacle.
Wow. So they had paid for your flights, but then they took away the flight back because you didn't do the pitch. So then you just kind of stuck.
In California. Yeah, to get stranded, which, in some, not the worst place in the world to get stranded, of course.
Sure.
I went to the beach and walked along the sand.
Oh, nice. And there's Universal and Disneyland out there. Did you get to hit those?
Mm-hmm. I got real close to them. Yeah. Didn't go inside.
Cool.
But
and how long were you there before you actually made your way all the way back to Indy?
Well, it took me some time because I wasn't exactly cash flush at the time, because I was really hoping on the Shark Tank to be boosting the business and maybe getting some of that revenue stream coming in. So I didn't really have the money in the bank, and all my credit cards were maxed out. So I just thought, gosh. So I waited tables for a bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. What, like a Buca de Beppo, or where?
Yeah. Near the Buca de Beppo, on that, actually by the Universal Studios, on that Universal City Walk.
Cool.
I got a job at the Bubba Gump Shrimp.
Oh, cool.
Really?
And for first time in one of those establishments, and I thought, wait a second, was Forrest Gump, was that a documentary? I didn't understand but it turns out it was just inspired by the film.
Right. I thought the movie was inspired by the restaurant.
Oh.
And that's when I got to the restaurant, I thought, wait a second, which of these came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yes.
And turned out it was the egg after all. It was the movie. It was the movie that came first. But
is that right?
Amazing. So you had to where were you end up living? How long were you working at Bubba Gump before you could pay your ticket back? I mean,
yeah. Well, it turns out, because a minimum wage is less when you're making tips.
Tips, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which, again, this is all new to me.
Yeah.
Because it was really my first time in a big city. I'm a small town girl.
Yeah.
I live in the house that I grew up in, my daddy's house. So I don't, So, oh gosh, I guess I was out there for a couple of months.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Saving your
because,
money.
of course, you don't realize LA is a very expensive town.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would make some money at a couple shifts at the Bubba Gumps. And you go, I got a little bit of money. I got a little nest egg going. And then, of course, that goes quick.
Right.
Then I'm paying for a hotel every night. Well, I soon quit that, because I realized robbing Peter to pay Paul, I'm not really getting ahead here. So
I love the reference. And so, yeah, I mean, gosh, I never really thought of that. And I don't think of that really, Hallie, when I go to a restaurant, which I love to go to restaurants, especially ones that serve lean protein, but I'm never thinking, hey, these people make minimum wage. I usually think they're probably doing fine, because I never tip. I hate tipping.
Oh, really? Yeah. We had a lot of that at the
Really?
Bubba Gumps. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so our service expecting a tip is my question.
But yeah, it turns out, they certainly, they're depending upon it. Yeah.
okay.
But I think one cool thing that we have as Christians is that, say you don't want to, leave a 15 or 20% tip monetarily, you can give them a tip about Jesus. And you know what? You're now helping get their soul into heaven. And that is priceless.
It's funny that you say that, because I would offer up that all the time to my tables. I would give them a bit of Christian advice, and then suddenly the bill would come and there would be nothing. And I thought, it's like they didn't even listen to that thing I was telling them about. Love thy neighbor. And
well, it's another example of Christians being the most persecuted people worldwide. The liberals just really hate us. And if they figure out that you're a Christian gal, these evil liberals, they'll just stiff you. You know what I mean?
And I led with that too. I would say, hi, welcome to Bubba Gums. My name is Abby. I'm a Christian. Can I take your order? And people didn't, for some reason, people got real cold at times.
Huh. And I just hate that. Yeah, I know. And in Indy, I love it when someone tells me first, hi, I'm Dr. Crisp or whatever. I'm a Christian. Because I like to say, you wouldn't go to see a lawyer or an accountant and just trust that the person walking in is the lawyer or the accountant. And I love that in the service situation, you're going, hey, I am your server, because these days it could be any freak coming into a restaurant trying to do something weird. And I love that you said, I'm your server, I'm a Christian. And I think that right there is an amazing, what I would call appetizer to what was probably going to be a delicious bucket of shrimp. But they didn't like that.
Yeah, no way. Well, at first they would just kind of a bit of a look, but then, and I'd bring them their food and I would say, all right, who wants to say grace? And I wouldn't let them take the plates until they'd all said grace and blessed the food. And
yeah, that's awesome.
Well,
yeah.
And
well, forgive me if this
got some negative feedback. I got some, because they have comment cards, and most of the time people don't even they don't want the comment cards because they think, I got to get onto the Universal tour. But they took the time every time to write out a comment card for me, and their words were not very Christian.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's California for you, because I guarantee you, if you announced yourself as a Christian in Indy, it would increase your tip. I just know it. And, well, forgive me if this is too personal a question, but what did the kitchen smell like at that restaurant? And the walk-ins and all that, I can imagine it must have really had a funk of that kind of seafood smell.
Yeah, it sure did. It sure did, Hallie. It kind of like, you ever been over to somebody's place after they went clamming? Clamming?
Mm-hmm.
And they take off their boots, and then they leave the boots out in the sun. And then the next day you're like, what is that smell? That's what it just really? Real rough, old, clammy smell.
It's right back there. Yeah.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
I also wanted to ask, how'd your dad die?
One every year he would go. He would take his word on the road, and I would stay with my grandparents or an aunt or something like that, and he would take a mission to Vegas.
Awesome.
Just preaching the word and meeting a whole bunch of really nice folks in Vegas. And sometimes he would say he'd be gone for a month, and he'd actually be gone too because he was doing so much good work.
Wow.
He must have been clearly taken the word to an opium den to try to rescue some people with, I think, sin in their hearts.
Yeah.
And gosh darn it, I think a knife fight broke out. It looked, the papers made it look real unsavory. But really, I know he was just doing some good work there.
Well, I mean, this happens to missionaries everywhere. I should know. I've done missions trips to Vegas, and while not being in places like that necessarily, basically what I took a bunch of youth there that were building, or we were handing out Bibles to anyone who would go ahead and make a pledge to not gamble. And I thought that was great. But at one point, guy was going into a casino and got into a confrontation with one of my youth, and one thing came to the next, and the guy dumped a bucket of diarrhea on the head of my youth. And
oh my, yeah.
And what we realized later is, that guy obviously, had some problems, the fact that he even had that bucket with him. But, it can happen. And in that whole altercation, a needle, someone got stuck with a needle, there was a bucket of diarrhea. It was a whole thing. But I'm just saying it's a dangerous place. And when you are preaching the word of God, things can happen, can't they?
Yeah.
They sure can.
I mean, that happens to missionaries who go to these, remote tribes, and these remote tribes who, aren't even civilized, just immediately kill the missionary.
I know.
And, people think, well, why is that missionary doing that? Well, they were called by God, and now they're in heaven. I think the fact that your dad died doing missionary work is beautiful. I think, what a way to go, right? I mean... but I'm going to put you on the top of my prayer list, Abby, because
thank you. Yep.
I know it's hard to, be a fatherless child at any age.
Yeah, no, it was very hard. I was, I was 26 at the time, but I very much felt like I was still daddy's girl,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I guess I'm sorry I asked. Sometimes I feel like, if it's been a minute and your dad died when you were a kid, it's probably fine to ask about. But the fact that it was more recently, that has to be it has to be still pretty fresh.
And every day feels like it was yesterday. I mean, it was 12 years ago, but every day does feel like it was yesterday for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
And especially since it was so opaque.
Yes.
I kept asking for answers. I said, well, how did the knife fight break out in the first place? And people kept saying, oh, well, he started it. And I just refused to believe that, obviously, because, he's a God-fearing man and only ever had a kind word for a stranger, a noble gesture for the downtrodden. I mean, the only reason he ever would have been in that opium den in the first place was because he was trying to, help people, bring them away from the sin and towards the love in their hearts that they knew that they have deep down for Jesus Christ. So, it's a bit of a sore spot in our family, and brought a great amount of shame. And of course, then the debts everything came to bear. He had all these debts in Vegas from all the ministry work that he was doing in Vegas. And so I'm still, some of them, maybe some unsavory characters. Obviously he lent some money to these loan sharks, and they, and then they're suddenly coming to me saying, no, you owe us. And anyway, I mean, obviously crooked people with crooked thoughts in their hearts, and just trying to, game the system and game a good man, just trying to go down there and do a good thing. And so in any case, we're still, again, my cousin, the lawyer's got a handle on all of that, but suffice it to say, I really did need this opportunity with Shark Tank to get the Christ on the Cracker off the ground, because there's I am in a hole. Is what I'm saying. From a good man being dragged through the mud by all these terrible Vegas folks.
And I will give you a word of encouragement. Opium and opaque share the same first two letters. Oh. And when it comes to something that is savory, it is your product.
Yep.
What you're doing with these things. Mm-hmm. And I hope people can get behind it in a very real way, because something that loan sharks and Shark Tanks, don't have is really what I'll say the depth that the body of Christ has. That is His church, isn't it?
It's the business, and it's the business and the church. The church is the business, and the business is the church. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And I will say that what Sharks and Shark Tank don't have is an awesome, committed congregation that is going to be here to snack up these awesome wafers. And I'm looked at your website today, or I guess I would call it more of a Instagram, but you've got Bialys, you've got croissant, you've got bagels. Looks like you've got some, what I guess these are pita, and as well as tortilla, and all these things are just really awesome.
I'm
products.
Excited to try the wasabi flavor. I don't even know what wasabi is.
Yeah, it's like it's a little too peppery and spicy for my palate, but I prefer the OG, JC original flavor. Plain body of Christ.
Original Jesus flavor is what.
Original Jesus, yeah. That's my personal favorite, because I think, don't mess with the classic, but I also want to appeal to everybody, multi-generations, multi-faiths. I want people of every culture. So that's obviously wasabi would be for maybe your Japanese believers.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Or honestly, Lutherans.
Yeah.
And that too. Yeah, you're right. Because wasabi, much like Jesus, really is for everyone.
All right, folks, that's the episode. If you want to support Mega, the best way to do it is head on over to Supercast. You get ad-free listening, a behind-the-scenes podcast, and that warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing that you are helping us keep going. Head to mega.supercast.com. Of course, a huge thanks to Allie Price, playing Abby Prince. You can follow her at Hey Allie Price. And a special thanks to our founding members on Supercast, Bobby and Betty, Anonymous, and Nana and T-Pop.